All right. Thanks to those of you out there for joining us for what we're calling episode 11A of the First State Kopites podcast. It's a special edition today, and we are very excited and privileged to welcome in one Mr. James Paul Conrad, Jimmy to his friends, and to those of us that know it's Conradinho.
I love it. I love it. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here and to discuss the beautiful game with all these beautiful faces. Let's get after it.
Well, thanks, man. So what's it, balmy 9 o'clock in the dimension that you're in on the West Coast over there?
That's correct.
Well, thanks for taking the time, man.
No problem.
So we're going to jump straight into this. You are probably the most prestigious Newcastle fan that we know, at least could get to come on the show. So tell us about how you became a Newcastle fan to start off with.
Well, as most people know that live here in the States, there was a big thirst and desire to see any kind of professional soccer, as we like to call it, when I was a kid. And we just didn't have the TV outlets. Obviously, it's everywhere now. You can find it. And if you can't find it, there's an illegal stream somewhere where you can, or you can find the highlights on YouTube. I mean, there's just so much of it that you can absorb. And at that time, when I was a kid, there was nothing. But the Premier League was just starting, and on Fox Sports at the time, you could just kind of get the recap, the weekly 1 hour recap of what happened in the Premier League. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Manchester United, Eric Cantona had really come into, moving over from Leeds and starting to take over and really bringing a different type of style to the game. I mean, at that point, I think England was known to be somewhat Route One, and all of a sudden this influx, particularly with this foreign playmaker with Eric Cantona, really kind of changed how you could have success. And that meant that because they were doing well, all I heard was Manchester United this and Manchester United that. Like, enough of the Manchester United stuff. And so all my friends were pretty bandwagon Manchester United fans. And I was like, okay, I appreciate Cantona and I appreciate what they bring and Sir Alex and all that good stuff. But I just don't know if I can subscribe to that. And that season, or one of the seasons early on in the Premier League, I think the 92-93 season, I should know this by heart, but it's where Newcastle slapped them 5-0. And my friends were so bitter and had excuses for everything. I was like, that's my squad. I'm liking the black and white stripes. I'm loving everything that's happening there. They got a little bit of attitude to them. And they're signing players that are making differences. Obviously when they brought in Shearer from Blackburn and that's my team. And honestly, since then, it's been a steady decline. Like I caught them at their peak and it sucks, like we didn't go up any higher. I was at the peak and now it's just been a downhill ascent or descent, excuse me. And it sucks. But now we seem to have had a turn of fortune, which has been a long time coming. I just wish it didn't come with that human rights violation tag that these owners potentially have some blood on their hands. And that it makes it very conflicting and it's hard to really enjoy it in a proper way. Now, I don't know how you as Liverpool supporters feel about Fenway Sports Group. And I'm not saying they have human rights violations on their hands, but there's still that, this is cool, but are they really who we want as owners, And we're taking that to the next degree because of these human rights violations.
It's funny you say fortune because that seems to be what it's all about. Like I generally tend to make take a more sanguine view on things. It's, as you were saying, as a Newcastle fan, you've watched what is, I wouldn't say storied per se because it's been a minute since you actually won anything. I'm not trying to put the boot in there, but it kind of is.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm a realist. I'm not one of those hopeless romantics that think Arsenal are going to win the league every year. You know what I mean? Like I know exactly who we are and what we're about. So yeah, you keep taking your shots. No problem. I'll absorb.
Just immune. Yeah, just immune. Well, it's again, I take a more sanguine view on it because like the fans don't have anything to do with it. And I think that it's become pretty well documented over the last, 15, 20 years since probably Abramovich took over, that in order to be competitive, you have to bring the money. And as you were saying, Ashley, before off air, you can call them it if you want. Yeah, I'm here for it. But it was a word that was used. It was probably used pretty much by every single Newcastle fan that I know. And he wasn't providing the investment. And now you have this public investment fund from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that has its has its issues. Let's put it that way. Like I want to open us up to the other guys as well, just to see what their feelings are as well, because I think that we run the risk of being a little bit disingenuous by trying to point fingers, because if you move enough dirt aside from almost all ownership groups, you will find bodies. Mm-hmm. So I'll start off with Paul. What was your immediate take when you heard that the Saudi Arabian royalty was taking over, or not taking over? They've got an investment fund and a consortium that's supposedly taken over for them.
I guess well, Jurgen Klopp's talked about this morning. I don't know if you've seen what he had to say. He said something like, Newcastle fans are obviously delighted, but I think the rest of football will have issues with this, which I guess is probably where I was. What I found disappointing, actually, the most disappointing thing, is the contortions that people seem to have gone through to like explain it away. That's been very. I mean, I think we've seen it before. I mean, I think I pointed out in the to at least one of you that I saw some Manchester City fans trying to argue that Abu Dhabi didn't really own Manchester City and they had a much more hands-off relationship than the Saudi Arabian investment fund will. And it's annoying. I don't even know why I read some of the comments in some of the articles I read, but before we're done, I do want to go back and talk about the team in the 90s. By the way, so let's leave time for that. Sure. Yeah, so that's my take. I don't know if anyone else has a different take on it.
I'll jump in really quick and say that the nuance and subtlety between, or even the Man City's fans shouldn't be saying anything about anything, either PSG fans. And when Jurgen Klopp does say something, it's interesting how accustomed we've grown to just Abu Dhabi being involved, or the Qatari people being involved with PSG, and just we've accepted it. It just is what it is, and how much they flaunt financial fair play, and what of a joke of a rule that was. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes we can go down and go down and go down, and it never looks good for the game. And it's not about the fans, and it's not about the players. It's just about profit. It's about sport washing. It's about whatever it may be. And that sucks, because we want to see it for what it is. Just this game where a bunch of grown men in small shorts kick a ball in a certain direction. And there's some tribalism there. And the team that's wearing that color, I like those guys. And the team that's wearing, well, I like them too. And let's just have some banter about it. And that's what it is. I mean, we want to get it back to what the simple part of it and what made it pure in the first place. And it just feels like it's being tainted in so many different ways. So that gets frustrating. It's hard not to separate that. I think from a Newcastle perspective, and I saw this comment, which I thought was funny, is that now everybody has an issue with Saudi Arabia. Not when actually those human rights violations were being perpetrated, but now that they bought a football club, God damn it. No, nothing. No, those Saudi Arabians have to go away. We got to put them in jail. Like, this can't happen. Like, why does it have to take that step for that to have that kind of reaction? I thought was an interesting take on this particular situation, and why those same arms weren't being thrown up when potentially City and PSG were doing the same exact things. Now, I'm not trying to validate this decision. I think what Newcastle fans can do is hold this group accountable, that if you're going to come in here and own our football club, which stands for X, Y, and Z, then you have to stand for that as well, and everything that you're doing, because that's why you're purchasing this club, I assume, is for this history and tradition. And we are going to hold you responsible and accountable. And I guess this is the only way you can say it from this point forward, because if you're going to own our club, then you need to stand for what we stand for. And that's a place where I think Newcastle fans can really turn this into a positive and not try to discuss this away or try to validate it by comparing it to City or PSG or any other dirty money that's out there in the game. And then kind of maybe put it into a positive. That's the only way that I can somewhat justify and feel somewhat okay about this, because other times I'm like, man, why can't we just have like a normal owner that's American that people just hate because he's an American owner like you guys? And why does there have to be like oil money and human rights violations attached to this?
Yep. Oh, well, it's funny. It's okay. It's not funny. It's actually terrible. But ostensibly, one of the reasons that the FA changed their minds, and I think that it's even at a superficial level, you don't even have to dig that deep, it had to do with BN sports rights. Mm-hmm. So I did like a little, again, like just a cursory search for me showed up that apparently they blocked it last year on the human rights thing, but also because they found out that Saudi Arabia was the lead in terms of the lead country in terms of piracy for the games when BN had the rights in the Middle East, and that's the Qataris, I believe, that own that. So
that's correct.
So it's interesting that all of a sudden, once that ostensibly ended in January, like, oh yes, we're going to prosecute all these people that are these darn pirates. Gosh darn it, how dare they? So once that was off the table, the human rights violations or the other side of that other arm of that same body was like, oh, I guess we can overlook these things. So my sense, I think that the FA needs to be held to account here. And Sean, like, I'd love to get some of your viewpoints on that.
Well, first, I want to say I can sympathize with you, Jimmy, because I'm a Washington football team fan.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And you can imagine how that's been over the last 20 years.
100%.
30 years. God, I became a fan, right before they won the Super Bowl, and it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah. Sure, what did we say?
Right before they won the Super Bowl? Come on.
Are we talking about Theismann and Art Monk and those guys?
No, the 91 Super Bowl, Mark Rippon.
Oh, yeah.
We moved to Maryland in 1990.
That's right.
In the D.C. area, and I was like 9, so it was great, and then it's just been torture ever since. But so anyway, and by the way, I want to mention, I did go when Dad's mentioned you were beyond. I went and looked up your goal on YouTube.
I'm sorry.
The U.S. men's national team. No, it's a hell of a goal. What a header! I was like, wow.
Yeah, I didn't even need to jump. That's what's great.
Yeah, that was cool. But so it's interesting because I thought about this a lot since the they announced this, and my initial reaction was like, oh God, that's horrible. How could they allow this thing, and then but since then I've thought more about it, and it's like, what would I do if I was like, if the Saudis took over Liverpool, would I really quit being a fan?
That's so
I tell myself I would,
yeah,
but I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what I'd do. And let's be honest, one of the groups that's been linked with with purchasing Liverpool in the past is a Chinese sovereign fund. So is that really that much better? It's, you can argue, I guess, make arguments, but it's you're kind of you're kind of stretching yourself at that point. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's terrible that the Premier League and the FA are allowing it, but they've already kind of opened the door to Russian money laundering and
I think Sean, I think it's a slippery slope because then you get into just your day-to-day life, like ethical consumerism. I'm pretty sure the shoes that I'm wearing, I mean, I would just venture that it's probably made by people that weren't being treated well in a work environment somewhere not here in this country, and that my iPhone that I'm using is probably being mined in, different parts of it are being mined in areas that if we knew exactly what was happening, I don't know if we'd buy that phone anymore. But it's pretty incredible how much we can turn a blind eye to. So there's a lot to unpack here, and how far we want to go down these types of situations. And I think more often than not, we just want to think that everybody's acting in their best interest. Like, we hope that the Saudis are coming in just because they love Newcastle, or that they just want to be part of the Premier League and they want to flex on their friends because they they have like $17,000 billion. And so but it's not as straightforward as that. And that's not how life works, unfortunately. And so it's just, it gets weird. It gets a little crazy and a little uncomfortable. And if we can have these types of conversations to kind of bring some things to light and to actually reflect on what we're doing with our own lives, I don't think that's the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, hi, Tim. I'll come to you on this one real quick. And I'm kind of going to put you on the spot here. What do you think, 30,000 foot view, the best possible outcome is for the FA here? Because Amnesty International, at least the UK version, is asked to speak with the head. I forget, it's Mark something. I forget his name. It'll come to me.
Richard Masters, I think it is.
Is it Richard Masters? Yeah. I'm thinking of someone else. But yeah, thank you. That's what do you think the best possible outcome for? Not that I really think the FA gives a flying fuck at a rolling donut about.
No, they don't. and should we give them should they be the police? I mean, ultimately, I do think the FA, the Premier League,
we've given them the badge, though, Jimmy. We have given them the badge, and
that's true. That's true.
And at some point, are they ever going to be held accountable for anything? To Sean's point, that horse is bolted. It's in a different field. It's already full. It's like there's a whole other herd of horses that are out there. And Kartik Krishna said something to that effect. And I was like, but you can close the door. You can at some point say that's enough, but they won't. And I think anyway, Hatham, I wanted to come to you on that. It's like, what can the FA do to, if they even care to, ameliorate or somehow put slap a little bit better lipstick on the pig?
That's a really good question. I think from a possible solution, we have the perfect antidote per se for this issue, which is financial fair play. But it's not. No one knows at this point. What that constitutes, what it's about, all of that stuff. And to me, you can, like Jimmy said, and Sean mentioned it too, you can have a Chinese consortium that's going to take over another club. I read an article in lines with what the Onion does and shared it with you guys, that the Taliban is going to purchase Middlesbrough. It was fun. So,
that's amazing, by the way.
Yeah, politics aside, just all the possible solutions or factors and having the Saudis or whoever Martians take over a club. I think for us as fans, the biggest deal is just how are we going to continue to enjoy football and players and teams without having to hate another team, because they're able to buy, spend billions and billions and build dynasties that will take over whichever league. And again, just going back to my point, it's financial fair play. So I think the focus needs to go back to financial fair play, streamline it and implement it in such a way that whoever comes in, regardless of the wealth that they have, the oil wells that they own, it's going to be a level playing field for everyone. And I think that's in my mind, my humble opinion, this is the solution moving forward and taking care of all these issues and making sure that people, like I said, will enjoy watching football moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to put something out here, and this is going to be contentious, but the European Soccer League, Sean, wouldn't that have been the actual antidote that was scuppered earlier this year? Because ostensibly what that was supposed to do was limit the amount of investment to it, or cap it to a certain degree, so that you couldn't do what they're planning on, the financial doping that's happening. And Jimmy, I'll ask you on this one. Do you think that it's that we somewhat twiddle our own hypocrisy gland to suit here?
Yeah, 100%. There's no question that what we choose and don't choose to get upset about isn't always uniform, that we, maybe based on our own biases in our own life and what we grew up with, what in terms of the lenses that we look through, what's fair and what's not. Now it's hard to, it gets so sticky. This is a really sticky issue. And I actually started to think a little bit more, and I love all your commentary, by the way. It's really great insight. Let me see how I want to phrase this.
Listen, Jimmy, before you go any further, it's only my mom that's listening. It's only my mom that's listening. So
moms love me. So let's give a 5-star review to this podcast, Mom. That'd be helpful for this. But now with regard to the policing, I think that's where it gets gray, because when these consortiums or oil money get into sport, it becomes really difficult, because you can see, at least from an investment standpoint, or if you have these capitalistic ideas. And I think this is where some of the philosophy gets interesting, because the game itself is socialistic, right? And you're only as strong as your weakest link on the fields, and I I'm laughing at myself for bringing up Loris Karius, but you win that Champions League final if that dude's not in goal. You know what I'm saying? I'm just throwing that one out there. So you're only as strong. You go get Allison, and guess what? Problem solved. You win a Champions League, and Virgil van Dijk helped a little bit too, obviously, helping. Anyway, we don't have to get too far into that. But what I'm saying is, it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition with you have a socialistic game that is all capitalistic outside of it, and yeah, it feels weird. They feel at odds at times. And I think that's part of the issue as well at play here, kind of like scaling everything back. And so it's really difficult. I don't think this is a conversation that really ever ends, but I do think there's a moment here for Newcastle fans, and I'll go again to hold these owners accountable for some of their off the field stuff, and to make them know, at the very least, make them know that you're aware of what has transpired under their watch. And I think that's important. And then with regard to the policing, though, for the FA and the Premier League, yeah, I think that horse is definitely like 17 fields over. Like, it's not even close to them being able to handle that. And they just see dollar signs, they see money, and then that gets back into the capitalistic, that gets back into power and greed. And that's not a great place for the game to grow, but it just exists in every single capitalistic society where if you're trying to build something, that's just how it just seems to work. There's a hierarchy and everything else falls into it. I'm way into it, the power dynamics of all that. And obviously there's some stuff happening here with the NWSL. So I'm invested in that. And then I'm reading this book called Cast by Isabel Wilkerson that is just fantastic, and kind of exploring and reflecting on my own about kind of my role and what I've seen in the game, both as a player and now in the media, even though I don't consider myself a journalist, just more of an entertainer per se. But I don't even know if I'm a very good entertainer, but definitely not a journalist.
You're my favorite entertainer.
You should see my stripper pole behind me. I got tassels and I like the lights change. It's unbelievable. Sorry, is that this kind of, that's an OnlyFans podcast. Sorry about that.
Well, I told you my mom is my only fan, so get the poll out. I'm sure
that's a lot to unpack there if that's true.
Sure is. Yeah.
Because I've always looked at the FA as kind of one of those suspender snapping, almost like long mustache twirling group, like someone just shows up with a bag of like one of those old burlap sacks with like a dollar sign, some like painted onto it.
Sure. And
ultimately, I think that you're right that there's no easy way out of this, because as fans, we're definitely jingoistic. And we always want something to lash other fans with, but ultimately it comes down to, and there's no way around it. Like, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? And there's literal gold on the table right now. And I don't know. I'm interested to hear from the rest of you, like how you really feel about what's like where Newcastle is going to be in the next 4 to 5 years as a result of this. Because to Hytham's point, if they do decide to clamp down on FFP, and I do believe that the FA has got some investigation going on in the background, whatever that investigation looks like for Manchester City, and if that actually adds more stricture to what we're doing. But what does Newcastle look like in the next 5 years at least? Well, I'll start with you, Paul, because
yeah. So this is I think I've changed my mind actually in this conversation. So this has been really thought provoking. But I think the place that I would go in terms of, I think there needs to be more transparency, and I think it starts with FIFA and UEFA, and and maybe this is a pipe dream, but it was interesting to me that UEFA pulled their lawsuit against the club still left in the Super League, and there seemed to be some suggestion that they were afraid that them being judge and jury around soccer would not stand up to legal scrutiny, and I do think that would be a really helpful place to start. And obviously the Super League was trying to usurp some of that, but maybe someone can make a better fist of the Super League idea and introduce some kind of independence in terms of the way in which the game's managed at all levels. That's my hope. It's not my expectation. As far as Newcastle are concerned, a couple of things. One is my joke to you, Daz, was that the the billion buyout clause in Pedri's contract was really a way of solving Barcelona's financial issues, because somewhere down the track, Newcastle will be able to sign him now, and they'll have the $1 billion, which will pay off all their debts, and they can get back to screwing up the finances once more. Seriously, I did find it interesting that you can spend 190 million right in the next window, which says something about Ashley's management of the club, if nothing else.
Wait, is that pounds or is that
that's pounds?
Dollars?
I think that's 190 million pounds. Yeah. I think that the challenge will be, everyone knows how much money you have, and everybody will be up in the price. It'll be like the City. Every fullback costs 50 million, right? But no matter who they are, because it's City. And no matter how good, bad, or potentially criminal they are, and so I think it might be really hard to spend that money, because will players want to be the first one to go? Will the prices be high? Will they end up with Philipe Coutinho for 150 million? And I don't know. That's I think it's not going to be a smooth path to. Well, that was one of the rumors, right? So. That's my take.
Yeah, I'd jump in and say, there's probably going to be once this initial pass and the acceptance of these new owners comes in, I think most people are going to be like, yeah, just give me Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland, and we're going to be great. This is going to be amazing. I love Newcastle. It's going to be awesome. So it's going to be interesting to see, because when there are comments, especially from, let's say, a Man City camp or Man City fans or PSG fans or Chelsea, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because they could fall into the same category as this ownership group. And I think maybe they say these things, put things out in the media or whatever it may be, if there's people from those particular clubs speaking, because now Newcastle can't outbid everybody. And they don't want that, because they don't want to have to overpay for players either, even though they have shown a penchant for doing that for a number of years. And I just think it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black in a lot of different ways. Doesn't make it right, but now Newcastle should start flexing on everybody, and we'll see. The game's definitely changed, and the power has shifted a little bit. So I'm curious to see how the clubs adapt to that, and of course how Newcastle do it. I saw that they came out today and mentioned that they're going to ease their way into this. I'm like, okay, whatever. Give Steve Bruce his 1,000th game as manager, and then kick the guy out. I can't see us, sit back with 5 in the back line at home against Southampton anymore. I can't do it. It's just give me somebody different at this point. But so I'm curious. I mean, if you're going to make a change, I would consider doing it soon, so that person can come in and really identify where the strengths need to be focused, who's available, and maybe give them that January transfer window to make a change or two, and then try to make a bigger splash over the summer. But if we're just talking about sporting issues and not everything outside of it, it is a fascinating experiment in terms of how it's going to impact the market and of course the competitive clubs in the Premier League who have the money to spend and compete on a regular basis.
So tell you what, Jimmy, I think if they were smart, what they would do is go offer Michael Edwards $1 billion and see if he bites. He's not at Liverpool anymore. I think Newcastle will be in the Champions League within 4 or 5 years.
Maybe less. Maybe less.
Maybe less. And and if they do form a Super League, I think Spurs might be the team on the outs if they don't take an extra one from the Premier League, which I guess they could still. But I mean, it's gonna happen. And I guess the one thing I wonder about is it doesn't seem this way right now, but will there be any fans that are sort of more reluctant moving forward, similar to, like, I don't know this personally, but I've heard stories of Man City fans who are like Main Road fans who like aren't really with the team that much anymore. They still support, but they don't really go to the games. Will there be any of that?
100%. Yeah, of course.
I don't have that impression right now with Newcastle, but it'll be interesting to see how that kind of all plays out.
You know what I'm excited about is I just think we're not going to see fans punching horses anymore. I feel like
I think we can all feel happy for you that you don't have to deal with Mike Ashley anymore. I mean, that was just a miserable situation.
If Alon San Maximin scores in a cup, it's not a big deal anymore. We don't have to whip out our junk and swirl it around. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to get that crazy. I feel like I'm going to be excited when we're winning consistently, so we don't have to act like complete assholes, you know, every time something good happens to our club, because we've been suffering for so long. But it is a unique bunch, the Newcastle fans, and I look forward to going to St. James's Park at some point when Sunderland ever comes back up. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Sucks to be you, Sunderland. Yeah.
You say maybe with your great grandchildren.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't even think about that. That's going to be miserable to be a Sunderland fan.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just before I talk about Newcastle's future, I want to go back to something that Paul mentioned regarding FFP, and just one last point. I totally agree with Paul that this needs to come down from FIFA somehow. They need to figure it out, because I feel like, you know, if it's the English FA and then, I don't know, the French FA deal with it at that level, it's just going to be the same mess, because you're going to have a team, you're still playing these teams in Champions League, Europa League or whatever. And if each FA is going to have their own rules for FFP, again, same mess, nothing new. So, and we have the same experience. I don't want to get into politics here nowadays with the pandemic.
Sure.
In the US with, you know, federal mandates and state mandates and all of that craziness going on. So just like Paul said, I think it needs to come down from FIFA, not even UEFA, just from FIFA. And, you know, it should just go all the way down. With regards to Newcastle, I think it took us 3 years to get into the Champions League, maybe 4 years, you know, after Klopp came in. So I project, you know, even with money, I just because of factors like, you know, building the team, having a proper staff, I think it takes time. This is not anything that's going to take a year or two to turn around. And you know, you could buy Haaland, you could buy Coutinho or whoever, but just look at Coutinho and how he's been, which I've been very happy about. You know, I state this every podcast episode.
Keep it coming. One more time.
I'm happy with the performance the past couple of years because of where he is.
Right.
That's all I want to say. So yeah, I think it's going to take, just like Sean said, 4 to 5 years before Newcastle, you guys will be a force. I think it's, you know, just as a football fan going back, I think it's great because you're going to have not just 3 or 4 teams that are competing at the top of the Premier League, but, you know, a couple more. And now we see teams like Brighton who are kind of doing it the right way, you know, with recruitment and proper recruitment, you know, that are competing to a certain extent before, you know, their first squad is depleted and they become shite again. You know, I don't know. Hopefully not, but I'm all for competition. But yeah.
No, I'll jump in really quick and say, with regard to FIFA being the police, and I think we've leaned on them before, they're also the one that gave the World Cup to Qatar when Qatar has got more human rights violations. And even building stadiums to hold the thing. Yeah. There's been like, 5,000-6,000 deaths, and they're taking passports away from migrant workers.
Basically slavery. Yeah.
It's a mess. And if FIFA can find a way to turn a blind eye to that, well, we have no hope of them being police. And that's already been proven, right? Sepp Blatter was one of the most corrupt people that we're aware of, at least at the FIFA level. And he was at the very top. So I mean, Johnny Infantino, he kind of looks like a Bond villain. So I don't know if he looks the part, but he says he's a little bit more smooth, I'd say, and not as abrupt and not as blatantly sexist. And so it's, you know, incorrupt, but you'd have to think, I don't know. That's a really tough one. And there's probably a lot to explore. And I'm sure we'll learn more after his time in charge is over. Now, with regard to the team overall, well, you know what I kind of love is that even though PSG probably has on paper currently the best team ever assembled. Yeah, a lot of the guys are over 30, but on paper, it just looks tremendous. They're still dropping games. And we could argue Pochettino might be he has Spurs, you know, what are you going to do? But I love that you can't skip steps. I love that you still have to brick by brick it. You still have to put it together. Just because you spend the most money doesn't guarantee you anything. Yeah. And I love that the game still has that. and that Man City hasn't won the Champions League despite the enormous amounts of money, and that it's still a struggle for them, even though they have arguably one of the best managers to ever manage. And I love that. And I love that Klopp probably knew that going in, that this was going to take time. And he got FSG to buy into that. And they went out and got the right pieces, brick by brick, and put together a winning culture that has now led to some tremendous success. And I think still puts you in a good position to win trophies, significant trophies this season as well. You just need everybody healthy. So yes, to your point, yeah, 4 to 5 years is, I'm just really eager to get started. We've been suffering, you know, and obviously I know, well, you know, firsthand from my own playing experience and from other things I've been a part of, that you can't skip any steps. And I like that it's that way. So we'll see if it sounds like they're trying to do the right things, but you never know. At some point, I feel like these owners, most owners, they're impatient. They don't want to wait 4 years to win a trophy. They're putting, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not billions of dollars into this thing. They want to see immediate results. And so that'll be, I think, the biggest challenge for whoever comes in as the boss.
So that was going to be my question for you is, do you, with as much suffering and gnashing and wailing and rending of flesh that you guys have had over the last 2,500 years, it feels like, dragging yourselves through the desert, do you think that your average fan is going to be okay with a sustainable growth? Or like, it's because you have you have $190 million or pounds to spend. You are sitting on like the amount of money that this ownership group has. Like, is the immediate expectation going to be like, we need a splash, we need a Haaland, we need a Sterling? I saw someone, like, within minutes of this going through, someone had put up like a FIFA 2021 squad, and you know how they do the pan in the lineup. They would have been playing a 0-1-9 formation had it been the number, had it been the players that they picked. There was Sterling, Ronaldo. The only person they had in midfield was Kante, which basically like 3 or 4 players are.
Which is PSG's problem. They don't have
the balance
defenders.
The team is imbalanced.
Yeah, I know that you're a way more balanced person, so you advocate for balance. But is your average fan going to be okay with like sitting on it and watching the type of sustainable? Because look at Leicester. Leicester has like that ownership group is, I think, the second or third like most creamed out organization or family. And look at the way that they've done it. Like they've done it in a really clever, sustainable way, which proves like I think once they get rid of Rodgers, they could be
He's got the best teeth in the game, Brendan Rodgers. What I'll say is his chompers are amazing. But what I'll say is
you could eat an apple through a fence with those things.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I marvel at it, frankly. But what I'll say is when you look at the teams, and I think it took Pep Guardiola a hot minute to really figure this out. And even when he did, to try to play his style, it was that he needed to go get defenders that could do both, that could play with the ball and actually defend. Now, and then he kind of almost, Ruben Diaz is a bit of a throwback when you look at him as a center back. Is he going to like hit that ball 40 yards and break the lines and switch to the point of attack? He can do it, but that's not why he's out there. He's out there because he's tough as shit. And he makes plays and he's got presence out there. And the guys that they had before him, you know, Vincent Kompany used to have that, but you have Laporte and Stones who are a little bit too pretty at times, you know, but they're great on the ball, but will they get in there and like throw an elbow in somebody's face? Because that's what has to happen. I mean, Sergio Ramos has got that almost too much going that direction, you know, and I think Virgil van Dijk is that guy's, you know, he's a physical specimen as well. So that helps, but he can play. But I think what really elevated that back line and he has presence. He's a leader. He holds people accountable. Yeah, Mo Salah, I don't give a shit who you are. Sadio Mane, just get the ball and score, man. You know, like I need you to track back because that's what the game mandates. That's what our boss is telling us. That's what we need to do. This is what we need. And you need a lot of those guys in the spine of your team. So when I look at Newcastle, and City obviously had gone through this as well. When I look at Newcastle, they almost have to build from the back forward. You have some really talented players. I look at Miguel Almiron, and I used to watch him here in MLS. That guy's got some sauce, but he touches the ball in a meaningful space like 4 times a game. My soul would be crushed if I was Miguel Almiron. Like I never get to showcase what I'm good at because I never get the goddamn ball. And then you see these glimpses of him and he's like a gazelle running past like 7 guys and either banging it himself or setting up somebody else. And then you have Alonso Maximin, who is an absolute beast. I love that dude. He's got so much sauce for days. And you have some players that can play. Callum Wilson's obviously, when he's healthy, a dependable Premier League forward. Joe Linton, I don't know why we signed that guy. That's a different conversation. But we have some other guys that are okay going forward, enough to be productive if we were like, if we could transition well. So you're kind of looking at that back line and that CDM spot and potentially a goalkeeper, even though I like Darlow, to really kind of help the team grow and evolve. And so I feel like, to the balance point, if they're smart and if Mike Edwards is available, you start to build in almost every line of the field and not just think, I'm going to go get Mbappe and Haaland and that's going to solve all of our problems. I'd like to think we've got some smart people involved who have been honestly sitting on buying this team for 3 or 4 years, so they could probably see what's successful and what's not. But, you know, when you have a lot of problems or a lot of money and you have impatient owners, you could probably have an opposite effect. And I actually think the rest of the Premier League would love it if we sucked, you know, even though we spent $17 billion in the last next 4 years or whatever.
So
I wouldn't like that, but you know.
Just a follow-up question. Let's say, you know, the powers to be at Newcastle look at this podcast and decide they want to hire you to be their John Edwards.
Sorry, John Edwards. I said Michael. Apologies.
It is Michael Edwards.
Michael,
sorry. Michael Edwards.
John to his friends.
My fault.
It's probably his brother. It's fine.
Who would you want to keep from the current squad? Let's say
good question.
To be there in like 2 or 3
what do you guys think? I mean, when you look at Liverpool, what did you do right? You didn't shed 8 to 10 players all at once. You did it at 2 or 3 players at a time. Yeah. And you were pissed when you lost Coutinho, right? And ultimately it ended up being a great thing for you. And, you know, obviously in hindsight, it looks great. And especially when you look at his career, and what's happened since then, even though he did win a Champions League with Bayern Munich. So I guess you got to take that into consideration. I don't know. You know, you still also want to have a vibrant youth academy. You want to make sure that the kids that have been in your academy for a long time are getting that opportunity. And Trent Alexander-Arnold's a great fit for that. And you know, Harvey Elliott, unfortunately, I'm bummed that he got hurt because I just think he was going to take these big steps. You want to make sure there's a pathway for those kids as well. And it's not just we're going to solve all of our problems. And I think Real Madrid got away with that. We got away from that. And we got Super Galacticos heavy and they were just buying all these big names and didn't allow any of their players to come underneath and start to kind of give that balance again. So it's tough. I you know, if we can move on, I think Joe Willock's a good signing. It's tough. Joe Linton, if we can move him along, you know, would probably be one that I would consider. And there's nobody I really dislike. Maybe John Joe Shelby at this point. He's done what he's going to do. I feel like we've hit the ceiling on John Joe Shelby as I look at the team. But there's other players that they're not bad, but it's just like, can we be stronger? And I honestly would look at it one line at a time. Who can we add? Okay, we get rid of Joe Linton. Who can we bring in? Is it Erling Haaland? Well, holy shit, let's bring Erling Haaland in. And that's going to elevate. I would say, imagine if Alain Saint-Maximin could play with Erling Haaland. I mean, all of a sudden, Alain Saint-Maximin would just hit these other level. You know that he would, because there'd be less attention on him. He'd have more space to play. And then in midfield, if you could bring in somebody, there's a deep line playmaker, could pass the ball a little bit. I don't know, or a Verratti or somebody that can help the team transition and actually give the ball to Alain Saint-Maximin where he's a little higher up the field and not having to track all the way back to get it. And Miguel Almiron could pick it up in those half spaces between the lines and could run at that back line. It would be sick. This team would be sick. So you don't really need as much as maybe people think. But that, for me, the back line, when I look at the back line and the outside backs, I feel like we could improve in almost every single area there. So I would almost start at the back line. Not to say those guys aren't good, serviceable Premier League players, but I would start to nitpick. And as I mentioned before, having a kick-ass center back, somebody that's got that presence would help. The problem is there's not a lot of those out there. I mean, we saw Upamecano leave RB Leipzig to go to Bayern Munich, and I actually don't think he's looked that great for Bayern Munich. Or you see Konate come to you guys, and not that he's gotten a lot of minutes to prove himself, but it's not like he's coming and just like lights out. He's a must starter. So you have people with potential, but who's really out there? Eric Garcia was the big name for Man City, came from Barcelona's academy, and he's making errors every week for Barcelona. So I know why Man City let him go, because he's just not locked in. So the center back position would be one that I'd be looking at hard. And I'd be going in hard on any, and honestly, right now, if I was Newcastle, I'd be trying to go buy some young center backs and trying to get them into the system as soon as possible and getting them to kind of buy into, this is the Newcastle going forward, and you're going to be a big reason why. So I'd really look in the spine of the team and kind of build around that. All
right. So one thing we haven't touched on, which is a big deal, sorry to cut you off there, Sean, real quick, is look what Rafa Benitez did with a somewhat lackluster squad. So I always go to
which one? Liverpool's, Newcastle's, or Everton's?
Oh, yes, C.
All three.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Or that D. But the point being is like, for me, it's going to come down to who your manager is. And
That's
I think
fair.
one of the biggest problems is who's going to be first. You don't want to be the Mark Hughes. You kind of want to, you want to come in as the second guy in, because again, I go back to what the expectation is from your fan base, and your ownership group is. And if he can't work miracles within a season and a half, he's probably going to get the X. So do you think,
Ted Lasso
like as your manager?
I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, Antonio Conte, I think, is the name that's being bandied about the most. He's very control heavy. He wants to have control on pretty much everything. Newcastle might be primed for that to happen right away. So you bring in Antonio Conte in, who doesn't necessarily stay long at clubs anyway.
No.
You know, even in his peak of his success at Juve, he left to go coach the Italian national team. So he could be a nice little stopgap. I think he could put some good things in place. I thought he did some excellent business while he was at Inter Milan in particular. He also brings young players along and gives and trusts them. Like you have Bastoni, who's going to be one of the top Italian center backs when Spanucci and Chiellini ever retire. And then you have Nico Barella, who I think is one of the best central midfielders, young midfielders in the world. So you have this coach that just wants a little bit more control. You say, all right, we'll give that to you for 2 or 3 years. And then everybody's on the same page. It's not like this acrimonious, departure and everybody's pissed at each other, very Jose Mourinho-esque, and it feels like a lose-lose when it should have been a win-win. And everybody knew that it was a stopgap solution. So he could be somebody, but he is intense. And I don't know if a lot of players want to play for him, even though Romelu Lukaku, I thought, spoke really lovingly of Conte, that he got more out of Lukaku, that now we have this different version of Lukaku who's a little bit tougher, frankly, and wants more responsibility and has grown as a person and as a player. So it's very cool to see that the impact that Conte can have. But if you want somebody to come in and kind of help you set up that shop, he doesn't exude that warmth, I think, that I would like to see from a manager that's getting involved in this situation. But I don't know who else is out there that has that type of pedigree outside of trying to lure somebody away that already has the job or already has a job. So that's a tough one, but Conte would be an interesting experiment for sure. And to see him back in the Premier League, stuck on the sidelines, yelling at everybody and anybody that's in his face would be kind of amazing. So I'm here for it.
Well, if you wait 3 weeks, you might be able to get Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Nah, that guy's a better assistant coach, to be honest. I don't think he's head coach material. I will say that Antonio Conte does have a tremendous success rate with teams that are in black and white. I'm talking about the old lady in Italy with Juve. So who knows?
Match made in heaven.
That's
Sean,
it.
You had a question, Sean? Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, I was going to say a couple of things. One was Heitha mentioned earlier at Klopp. We actually got fourth Klopp's second year, but I think what really you want to look at is how long did it take us to get there under FSG? Because it took a while for us to get Klopp, right?
Right.
So it was just kind of what you were just talking about. And Conte, Conte's a great manager, but he's not the type that comes in and buys a whole bunch of young players and builds a squad. He kind of comes in with an established team.
That's true.
And then takes them to the next level. So I would kind of wonder, I was looking at this the other day, like what other options are out there. And I don't know a lot, but I looked at Dortmund's coach.
Yeah. Marco Rose. Yeah.
Yeah. Like somebody like that, I could see being a good, first attempt, and maybe you're kind of throwing them out there and just kind of see how it goes. But somebody that will build a young squad and kind of, like you're saying, kind of build like a new culture and a new thing. Because that's really, a lot of what Klopp changed was the culture in the dressing room and the mentality. And he specifically went out and got players that kind of suited that. And people always point to when we spent a lot of money for Van Dijk and Alisson, but I think that's because the club generally thought they were the best at their position in the world. And that's why they were willing to spend that money. So, it's FSG operate a lot different than I'm sure the Saudis will. They're a little more cash strapped, but
well, at least they pretend to be. I will say that, and that's very American, by the way, to do that. I will say, just ask Man United fans about how the Glazers leverage everything to not use their own money to. Anyway, we can get into a different conversation, different podcast. This is those stupid Red Devils guys, right? So what I'll say is, with regard to the culture that you're talking about, what's interesting is, I hadn't really thought about this before, but I'm looking over here to see kind of the odds on who's going to take over the Newcastle job. And I hadn't really thought about Frank Lampard too much, but he could be somebody that could potentially come in, because whether you love him or hate him or don't rate him as a manager, he still actually built the team that Thomas Tuchel is using to win trophies. Now, obviously, the Lukaku ad wasn't part of his, but ultimately the nucleus was there. He just didn't have him in the right formation and wasn't obviously saying the right things, or didn't maybe have the right tactics to get the most out of them. And we could argue there's a lot of Chelsea players that kind of don't like those tactics, because I think in particular, Christian Pulisic, and I watch him closely as an American, he gets handcuffed a little bit, I think, with these tactics from Tuchel, but it's still effective. And so Frank Lampard could be an interesting choice. You bring him in, he can identify talent. You're also not afraid to bring along youngsters, and you give him that year or two to kind of help, and then say, hey, buddy, you're out of here after we got it to a good place. You're good at getting us to a good place, but to actually win trophies, we're going to have to go to somebody else, unfortunately. So maybe Thomas Tuchel will be available at that point, and that would be kind of funny if Tuchel replaced Lampard again and started winning trophies for Newcastle. But I would say it could happen, which is kind of crazy to think about. But there are a couple of choices here. I guess it just depends on what the new ownership group wants and the type of mentality you want around the club, knowing what you've seen from the managers that are available. But Graham Potter wouldn't be a bad shout either, to kind of give it to, or Eddie Howe, somebody that probably just deserves a chance with a little bit of a bigger club. To not that Newcastle's there yet, they're obviously down at the bottom, but knowing that the future is going to be bright could be pretty interesting for those types of managers who might not get that shot otherwise.
I don't think that Newcastle ever stopped being a big club.
True.
I've always had a soft spot for Newcastle and Geordies in general. And having said that, we have had some like unbelievable matchups against them down the years. Specifically, I'm going April 3rd, 1996, when Stan Collymore scored in like the 725th minute of extra.
Was that 4-4?
Added on. It was the 4-3 game. Yeah.
4-3. Yeah.
There's been a couple of them. So we're getting close to time here. So I'd just be interested to hear from you guys, and then from you also, Jimmy, as one of the guys, what your favorite game was as a Newcastle fan watching against Liverpool. I'm sure that there'll be different games, but that 4-3 one sticks in my mind just because of like the drama in it. It just felt like no team had any interest in defense in that game. So Paul, you're old. You've been around since, I think, Methuselah.
I am old, yes.
Blogged, so.
Yeah. Well, it's easy for me, yeah. 3-0, 1974, 1st of May, I think, FA Cup final. Malcolm McDonald was going to like score us to bits, and we produced the first time I've really ever seen total football under Shankly's last game, actually. Absolutely wonderful. I am also interested in hearing the recollections about who were those players that drew Jimmy in that 5-0 game. So if that's part of his recollection, that'd be really interesting.
Yes. I'm looking at the games that were the most famous right now and kind of harking back to it. I'll get to that, and then I'll talk to you about the players. But there was a result in 2010 that stood out, because Alan Pardew had just been signed to a 5.5-year deal, which still sounds insane that anybody would sign Alan Pardew to a 5.5-year deal, because that guy's crazy. But it was a 3-1 result. It was December 2010. And Andy Carroll scored for Newcastle in that one.
Never heard of him.
Kevin Nolan scored. And I don't know if everyone's favorite, but Joey Barton also scored. Everyone's favorite drunk scored in this one. And Roy Hodgson was managing you guys at the time. And what's crazy was that you guys sacked him a month later.
Those were the bad old days.
Yeah, you got replaced by Kenny Dalglish. So that was a game that that was when Newcastle was still like competing, and that's kind of like the last time I remember feeling somewhat good about our team, and that there was actually, I had a sense of hope that, hey, maybe these guys can do it, and maybe they can, and we had a good season with Papa Cisse and Demba Ba. Those guys were crushing it for a while. So that game kind of stands out as the most recent, but that 96 game that you're talking about was from a Liverpool perspective, it was just a good one even for the neutrals, but 4-3. Robbie Fowler had 2 in that one, if I'm not mistaken. But when I look back at those teams, even though Ginola didn't play with the team for very long, he's going to be somebody that draws me in. Alan Shearer, of course. Andy Cole had a brief stint right when I was you know, and I followed him to Manchester. I was like, God, he goes to Manchester United and starts to do well and build his relationship with Dwight York. And they had a good one, Philippe Albert, Les Fernand. I mean, it's not hard to pick out, you know, a whole bunch of names. And then, you know, what's funny is I went to Chile for the 2015 Copa America, and I got to interview Tino Asprilla, which was a big thrill for me.
Oh, wow.
And actually think that Newcastle, even though he was talented and he scored goals, I feel like they lost their team shape a little bit. I feel like they had to build, almost when like Zlatan shows up to your team or Ronaldo shows up to your team, you got to play different to accommodate these guys. And when Tino Asprilla came, I just thought it took away from the success the team had been having. And yeah, so that was an interesting time. But I got to meet Tino Asprilla, and what do you know what he's doing? He was in Colombia, his home country, and he has condoms with his name. It's the Tino Asprilla condoms. Like, it's I was like, this guy is an absolute legend. How could we be
Probably
best friends?
Neymar's next career, right?
Unbelievable. Yeah. There's a lot of guys I think that could use so their own condom.
I don't think they make condoms that small.
Yeah, I asked him if they had an extra small for me, but I blame my dad. It's the Conrad curse. God damn you, genetics and dad. So it's that was cool too. You know, anytime you get to meet the guys that you looked up to, even if they're selling condoms, was a pretty neat experience. But yeah, that team was easy. I mean, there was something about them. They weren't afraid. They were swashbuckling. They'd go forward with reckless abandon. Everybody was getting into the attack and trying to make it happen. And yes, there were a lot of 4-3 games because of that, but there was something about that fearlessness that I was really attracted to. So when they did slap around Manchester United 5-0, it felt good because, you know, as the kids say now, cry more. All my Manchester United friends were like, oh, they're like, cry more, suckers. I'm supporting Newcastle from here on out. So as I said, it was a steady decline since then, but it was, it's been fun. It's been a wild ride. It's a unique experience not to support a team or to support a team that doesn't win all the time, and you know, how you accept it. And very similar to now where I'm conflicted about, you know, I got these owners that, you know, it's going to give us success, but at what cost, you know? So it's interesting.
I do got to jump off because I'm hosting
Of course you are. Look, you guys are all super popular.
Nah, but I do look forward to some great matches with Newcastle in the near future. One thing is that I don't have any like clear memories of like, you know, the rivalry, but I've always thought that the ground is pretty cool. And I'm guessing that some of our away fans are probably secretly happy that they'll get to take some fun trips up there in the near future. So
we have a lot of horses to punch. So you just,
right.
You guys
Take care. Big swinging continue.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give up actually coming up with a match in favor of asking you, Jimmy, a question about your career. So what two players, one you played with and one you played against on the same pitch, that just bestowed total awe on you based on the way they performed?
Sure. So I have a couple players. I've had the benefit of playing against some of the world's best, and R9 Ronaldo, I got to play against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, and seeing him up close. You know what I really appreciate? Zidane was on the team, so obviously in awe of him, and Roberto Carlos and Iker Casillas, and Beckham that's when he was with Madrid. But getting to see, because I was a center back, so getting to see R9 Ronaldo, he was partnered with Raul. And I was like, Raul's nothing compared to R9 Ronaldo. You just kind of have to mark Raul in the box because he's very shifty and is very good at creating space and pulling off your shoulder. But R9 Ronaldo, it's just, there's no way I can defend him. There's just no way I can. I mean, his quads are the size of my whole body, and he's got the most magical first touch with both feet, and he's fast and strong, and he's good in the air, and he can hold up the ball. Like the only way I can defend somebody like him is if he just doesn't want to be out there that day. That's the only possible way I can slow this guy down. We gave him 2 half chances in that game, and he scored both side netting. And I was like, yeah, I've never seen anything like this. This is, he's a specimen. Now, Zidane he's playing 4-dimensional chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. I mean, the way that he's so fluid when he moves. And what I want to say for everybody listening is what I really appreciated in this game, because it was a friendly, they didn't have to go hard on us. These guys work so extremely hard when they're supposed to. They're so efficient in their movements. And it helps when obviously you have players that know how to hold the ball under pressure, that you can time your runs. You can get into that space at the right time and not get there too early or whatever it is. And they're so well-versed in the game and how to move and where to go and when. It's incredible. And I loved all 90 minutes, even though we got our ass beat. I loved all 90 minutes of that particular game. Michael Owen and Steve McManaman came off the bench in that one. I won't tell you the final score. I'm just going to tell you that I loved every single minute of it. Now, I also had the chance to play against Argentina in the Copa America. So I got to play against Messi and this Argentina team that was stacked. Zanetti, Riquelme, Crespo. Messi just, you can't get your hand on him. He's so slippery and he's always looking to play forward. So just to kind of see the decision-making that these guys make in games and what they're looking to do, and that they're not playing safe. They're playing to hurt you as soon as possible with any pass that they can, or whether to run with the ball or without it. It's really, really something else. There was another player, Miroslav Klose, more World Cup goals than anybody else. Just, he looks like a guy that should be managing an Office Depot, right? I mean, he just doesn't look like a professional athlete. But there's something about his understanding of the game, his timing, and he's so good in and around the box that they're very similar to Raul. You think you have him, and then you look around, and he's now banging it at the near post. You're like, God damn it. So these guys are so good at understanding how to play. And it's something that when I coach now, I try to give back to the teams. And then from an American perspective, Claudio Reyna really stands out, played in 4 World Cups for us. His son Gio plays for Borussia Dortmund now for the men's national team, which makes me feel old because I remember when Gio was at the pool, like 5 years old, swimming around at World Cup qualifiers and stuff. But you could play him the ball in any situation, and he always had the answer. And not only, he'd always have 3 options. You played, it didn't matter. He had 3 guys on his back. You could play on the ball. It's like, just give it to me. I'll figure it out. And he never looked troubled. And John O'Brien, and that player we don't talk a lot about here, but John O'Brien grew up in my area in LA. And we heard about him, this little punk kid, little tiny guy. He went to Ajax and he just same. You play on the ball and everything's smooth. He always makes the right decision. And that type of quality is just something I wish I had in spades. And I just didn't have it. I once had a national team coach compare me to Jamie Carragher. That was me. I was a heart on my sleeve defender, going to run right through you, run through a brick wall, hold people accountable, do your goddamn job, that type of stuff. That was me. I was captain material, I think, in some ways, but in terms of like having that class, that quality, that world-class ability to play, maybe I had it in commitment, but I definitely didn't have it like those guys have it. So I feel very fortunate to have had the experiences that I did, and I want to pay it forward now to anybody that I'm around.
So are your Glens playing this year? I know that you guys had
2 years of pandemic. I'm coaching a 4th division team here in the US called the San Francisco Glens, and they do have aspirations to move up the ladder here. The ladder here in the States, though, is there's no promotion relegation. You got to buy your promotion. So we'll see if we get the investors to do that at some point. But we should be ready to go in 2022. And it's a very short season. I don't know how much involvement I'm going to have. I'll definitely be there as like a general manager. I just don't know, or technical director. I just don't know if I'll be able to coach as much because there's some off the field family stuff that's going on that could impede my involvement in a more 24/7 role, which makes me a little bummed out. But life, that's how life goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure my mom now, if you start up a GoFundMe, would probably drop a couple of
I'd love that. I'd love that. I got to figure out what I'm selling per se, or how she can help, but I'll get that sorted out.
That pole in the background will help.
That's true. My tassels. I look good in a leopard print Speedo, everybody.
All right. So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. February 7th, 2007, 51 and change minutes in. Your boy, Landon, Mr. Donovan to the rest of us, puts it down in that little semicircle in the corner there. What is going through your head other than, God damn, I'm sexy and white?
No, so you're talking about my goal against Mexico, my only goal for the national team. And what's funny is in that game, Landon had been taking all the set pieces. So you're saying 5-6 minutes after halftime. In the first half, he keeps hitting all the set pieces into the first post. Like, they're not getting past the Mexican defenders. Like, they have not necessarily a wall of guys there, but they're zonal defending to that first post, and he's not getting it. And it pisses me off as a center back because I'm the one that has to run all the way up, and then I'm the first one that's expected to run all the way back to defend. So I'm like, listen, if I'm going to do all this thankless running, I tell him this at halftime. If I'm going to do all this thankless running, can you just put one set piece in the goddamn mixer for me to like at least get on the end of? So no joke, that is our first set piece in the second half. And where does he put it? He puts it in the goddamn mixer, and guess who scores? This guy, because I was pissed. you know, that I finally got it. So obviously the first person I go celebrate with, and that's part of the surprise. My celebration, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. So if you ever see my celebration, that's what it looks like. But I'm going to him because we had the conversation about him putting it in the mixer for me to attack the ball. And so it's almost like me laughing at him, like, holy shit, we were just talking about this 5 minutes ago and it actually happened. So there's a lot to like the backstory of it's pretty funny, but yeah, obviously a big thrill for me. And I had my youth coach was there. He happened to come to the game. So to have like my youth coach in attendance to see me have that moment was very cool. And obviously my parents and friends where everybody was, I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten as many text messages on my phone than that night scoring against your biggest rival. I got named man of the match as well. So it was a cool feeling.
That's awesome, dude. That is awesome. Well, do you guys have any other questions for Jimmy? I know that he's a busy man with many.
Look at this hair and face. Of course I'm busy. What are you talking about?
Do you guys have any questions for him? Anything else?
This was awesome, Jimmy. Thank you so much for
no problem. My pleasure.
To come and chat.
Nice meeting you, Jimmy.
Nice to meet you guys. I've been to Anfield once, I should say. I sat in the director's box and it was incredible. I was there. Kenny Dalglish was there. Ian Rush was there. Robbie Fowler. It was for a Champions League game. My first time at Anfield against Porto a couple seasons ago. It was they won 2-0. I think Naby Keita scored the first one. And it was an incredible experience. And even though I support Newcastle, I quietly pull for Liverpool as well. And I'm a big Jurgen Klopp fan as well. So I appreciate you guys. I wish you the best of luck. I think you have a great shot of winning the Premier League as well as having a nice long run in the Champions League. So I wish you guys the best.
We hope you're right.
It's going to be great. You've given me, so now I know exactly what I'm putting on the precursor to the show. Liverpool fan, Jimmy Conrad.
I mean, at this point, my Newcastle friends would be like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like they would understand. Well, maybe not now. 2 weeks ago, they would have been like, I get it. Now they're like, what are you doing, buddy? Like the future's bright. Yeah. Great. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Take it easy, guys.
See you later.
Cheers.